What's up, guys? We've got another video for you, and this time we're talking about deltas. So I get this question all the time. What are the best delta skills? And, well, I don't think there's a straight answer. The problem that we have when it comes to deltas is really the fact of who are you taking a T9? So if you've already seen the video that we did a couple weeks ago about the safest gear tier 9s to go after, that may help understand why some of these are being picked on this list. But I think one of the most important factors you need to look at is what game mode is most important to you. Are you a PvP, Sorcerer's Tournament type person, and those are the places that you want to invest your gear, your runes, and all of that? Or are you looking at those raids? Now, personally, I still think that raids are the best place to invest gear because, well, raids give you the most gear back. But before we jump in, make sure hit that like, hit that subscribe. It really helps the channel. And let me know in the comments, what are you guys investing your deltas in? So let's just jump into it. So the question is, where do we start with our deltas? And I think the easiest thing to do is break these down into 3 categories. The first category is going to be your basics. Yes, I know they're kind of boring. They're not the extra big skills and specials and things like that. But honestly, basics are the skills that are going to be used the most when you're in these different battle modes. So when we look at basics, it's not just about the 50% extra damage. The other thing we want to look at is how many times is it being used? And that's the key to this. The key is breaking down how many times this skill is going to be used, and then also how much damage is it adding. So let's start with the 45 deltas. It's a little bit of investment here compared to the 25, but I think some of these may give you a little bit more than what the 25s are going to give you. So the first one, hands down, I think is one of the best upgrades you can do in this game is Beast Basic. So if we look at Beast, we're getting a 50% increase in his basic damage. Now keep in mind, Beast always attacks twice, and if they have a harmful effect or Beast has a harmful effect, he's going to attack 4 times. So now that 50% damage is being increased on 4 different attacks. Not only does his basic, every time you use it and you attack, that's going to get extra damage, also when he counterattacks. So think about all the times when he's counterattacking when Bell gets hit, or when your continuous damage triggers on him, or when an enemy actually gains a helpful effect. Once you start to put this together, Beast is using this move a lot through all of your different matches. The other reason I really like this is because Beast is really good in other modes as well, whether it's your Sorcerer's Tournament defense, your attack team in PvP, and of course, using him against Tornado and raids. All in all, this skill is definitely going to pay for itself over time, and it is the reason why I would put this as one of my very first delta investments. Next up on the list, very similar here, it's going to be Hercules' basic. So Hercules is in that same boat where he's going to attack multiple times. He has up to 3 hits. So again, this 50% damage over 3 hits is actually going to add a lot more damage than just someone else. He also has his counterattacks that he uses quite often if you've battled against Herc. So he's used kind of everywhere, whether it's Sorcerer's Tournament, PvP, or of course, the Sensational 6 plus Herc teams. So when it comes to this investment, it's another one of those hands down. Even though it's 45 deltas, it's going to be worth it. So the next 45 is a little strange. This one goes to Hades. Why is it 45? I have no idea. They decided to make Hades basic 45 when everybody else that's not a legendary is only 25. Again, this is one of those that I believe is really worth it because Hades is going to be hitting 3 times once he's empowered. If you guys know from the raid, he's really your damage dealer when it comes to the villains team. So being able to bump that damage up to 12k, 15k damage, it's very, very much worth it. Now, if I'm still deciding which 45 I'm going to invest in, is that going to be Herc, Beast, or Hades? I'm probably still going with Beast, but if I'm all in on villains and I'm using villains as my PvP team, then maybe Hades gets bumped up on the list. So the last character at the 45 delta mark that I would go for with basic would probably be Ursula. Now, I don't necessarily think Ursula needs this, but again, looking at the villains team, if you want that extra little bit, she is going to be pretty good to invest in this basic. She's also a very strong character when it comes to the Sorcerer's Tournament and PvP teams. So it's not going to be a wasted investment, but if I'm putting them in order out of the 4 we've looked at, she's probably towards the bottom of the list. So the next category of basics that we're looking at are the 25 deltas. This one's not going to be the legendary characters. This could be the non-legendary characters. And honestly, when I'm looking at this, I'm really looking at raids. We all know most of your Sorcerer's Tournaments are going to focus on legendary teams. Most of your PvP matches tend to have legendaries on the team. So the ones we're going to look at here may not make one of your teams in those modes. But when it comes to raid, these are some pretty big powerhouses. And we're going to start with the obvious one, MOANA. Most people say MOANA is one of the first delta investments you should do, and I wouldn't say they're wrong. It's only 25 deltas, it's 50% damage, and if you guys don't know, MOANA can do like 50,000 damage when it comes to the raids each turn she takes with her basic. So this investment is definitely a good one. It's another one of those that's double swings, especially when you pair with like Frozone on any of those teams to make sure that the Titans have slow. MOANA is really good in PvP, whether you're using princesses, adventurers, or just any of the synergies with Oceanic. So this one, it's also a very strong investment. So this next one, it's a little niche. We're talking about Eve, and if you guys haven't seen the Eve video, make sure to check that out. But this is a team in raid that can do upwards of 5 million damage. Now, in order to get that 5 million damage, there's two factors here. You need a T9 Eve, you need the basic upgraded with the deltas, and you need a little bit of RNG. But even without RNG, you can get 1 million, 2 million damage pretty easily with a T9 Eve. You can honestly get over 1 million damage with a T8 Eve, but in order to make it very simple and easy, this upgrade right here on Eve's basic just helps out. So this is one of those, it's only 25. If I was investing, especially with a club that's trying to get into heroic, this is an investment you want to make. She's not very well used in any of the other modes, but when it comes to raids, this team is going to be one that you want to get. And so with that, I would add Eve onto this list. Next up is Donald. Still looking at that 25 delta, still looking at that double attack. Donald is a really good investment here. He gets double attacks, plus he gets a lot of counter attacks when you put him and Daisy together. So all in all, I really like Donald's upgrade on his basic, and it really does help smooth out your raid teams. Donald's really good with the Sensational 6 defense, so it's really worth the investment. So now that we talked about the first category being damage, I like to talk about leaderships. So if you guys don't know, we just got Milo into the game, and Milo has really changed PvP in general. Milo's one of those characters that starts to morph the meta when it comes to PvP and some of these other game modes. And if you didn't know, Milo has a lot of tags involved with him. And because of that, the first one I want to look at is Frank. So as we know, Milo is an adventurer. He has a leadership himself, but I'm focusing in on Frank's leadership. So when we talk about Milo and the fact that he has a lot of tags, some people don't realize he has the tech tag. And back with tech, Hiro was the one you really wanted into your leadership. Because of that, I kind of have Hiro on this list. If you guys haven't played with Hiro and Baymax and Milo, it's pretty ridiculous. So to give 2 more speed percentage to these characters that are already extremely fast, well, you're going to be able to take your turns way faster than your opponents. So with that being said, I think Hiro's leadership is probably one that's going to start to pop up a little bit more than it was over the last few months as tech has kind of taken a back seat. But with Milo coming into play, we may see tech start to come back a little bit. One of the other tags on Milo is Oceanic. And one of the leaderships I really like is Maui's leadership with his shields. Now, if you haven't played against a T9 leadership Maui, well, you're going to realize those shields are pretty tough to get through. So I really like the fact that you can add 30% more shields to Oceanics. When you're already investing in characters like Moana and Milo, Maui may be an easy call. So to add his leadership with the whole combo with him and Moana, this may be a good one. But of course, Milo has the adventure tag, and we all know the adventures are really good. And this is probably one of the leaderships that comes up the most often first, which is Frank. And Frank is going to add speed meter and speed meter reduction on your team, which is going to be very helpful in PvP as well as the raids. So this one is one I definitely took up as one of my first skills, and I wouldn't probably do it first anymore, but I would say it's high up on the list. So when it comes to leaderships, these are the 3 that kind of stand out. I know there's others. You have like Judy Hopps' leadership, which is really great. And you have a few other sleepers that are out there. But when it comes to something making a big difference, these are the 3 that kind of stand out to me with your Delta investments. And when we're talking about adventures, I want to call out a couple other skills that can be really helpful if you're going to focus in on the adventurer team. If you guys haven't noticed the Proxima ability, well, it adds 50% damage, more health, and defense to Proxima itself. So this now can actually make Proxima pretty strong, almost as much as an actual character on the field. So this is one I would also add to the list if you're going to go solid adventures as one of your PvP teams or even in the raids. The other one is going to be Roll Tuk Tuk, because Raya, she's a beast when it comes to raids. If you can put her against the Rock Titan with all of the AoE damage that she can do, you'll really find value out of her. So if I'm taking up any of Raya's skills, this one's going to be the first one I take up. So when it comes to those adventures, the last key to the puzzle here, it's going to be Milo. It's going to be his passive. So we've already got a lot of calls to action when it comes to this team and the assists that are going down. So to throw in one more assist from Milo and his passive, well, it's going to make that team really hard to defeat in PvP, as well as a lot of synergy when it comes to the raids. So now we've already talked about the leadership. We've talked about the basics. Well, we get into the one-off skills, the specials. And the specials are the ones that are going to cost a little bit more, and you really want to find the biggest value when it comes to those. So the first special here, it's hands down going to be Maleficent. Not only is it more than 50%, it's 75% extra damage when it comes to the dragon. She can take down entire teams just when you're trying to kill her. So this is going to be one of the pricier Delta skills, but it is going to be worth it. So keeping on theme, just like we saw with Maleficent and all the other legendaries, we've got Elsa. And with Elsa, you've got Show Yourself. It's a lot of damage. And if you guys haven't been hit with a Barley Bomb, well, this upgrade, it's going to be able to take out teams. So just like all the other ones, this one's a pretty safe investment. Just keep in mind, Elsa, not so used in the raids, so you're really looking at PvP, Sorcerer's Tournament, and different modes like that. So we're back over to Hercules, another legendary. But if we're already going after a basic, and we're using them in Sorcerer's Tournament, PvP, raids, we might as well go ahead and look at the other skill, 0 to Hero. We're adding 50% damage, we're just increasing this character all around, and so this is another one of those that goes on my list, maybe not towards the top, but it's definitely on my list of good investments when it comes to your deltas. Lastly on the list, I like Combust. So Hades is one of those characters that are really good in raids. If you run those villains teams in PvP, he's going to be the center of it. And Combust is just a whole lot more damage that you can add to his kit and make sure that the damage he's putting out are at the levels that you want. So again, Hades, probably going to be a good investment because you're already going to be doing his basic, and this would be one I would recommend too. So we've looked at a lot of characters. Yes, most of these already have T9. I've already put the investment in, but it's because I try to go the safe route when it comes to my investments. I look at raids, I look at what we get back from raids. So a lot of my investments go around those teams to just try to get those teams up a little bit more with damage. Whether it's an extra 50K, 100K, or in Eve's case, a couple million, these investments really help me, and it's why I focus in there. But there's not just one way to play DSA. There's always characters that you're going to find that you enjoy to play with, you enjoy to use, and you're going to want to invest in there. So I found a couple honorable missions that I'm starting to play around with, I'm starting to test with, and I think that they're worth the investment as well, but they may not be characters that you're taking up to T9 right off the bat. So Dash is one of those characters that a lot of people used to use back in the day with the Dash and Frozone teams. And after that meta changed, well, the Incredibles stopped getting all the love. I've been trying to play around with Dash against the Rock and the double heads, just like we did with the Eels against Ursula, and I've really enjoyed the Dash. Yeah, Dash's move, the Dash. I like to put the 50% in here with the Deltas. It's a 25 Delta ability as well, but I've been able to get some pretty good damage out of it. Now, this is not going to be a Sully team. This is not going to be an Eve team with crazy damage, but it is a 500K, 600K, and potentially closer to 800K if you can get the right run. So this, again, is one of those that's a lot of fun. And in PvP, it's really cool when you're able to take out an entire team with Dash. So another sleeper skill that I think a lot of people are overlooking is Merlin's Goat. So when it comes to raids, yes, it doesn't always land when it's doing the turn meter reduction, but if we can get it up to level 4, it's going to reduce magic. And this could be something that's really good in order to take care of those insta-kills and things like that with Titans. So it's on my list, and honestly, over the next few upgrades, this one may slip in there. So just keep in mind, there's a lot of characters out there that may have some skills that are going to look good as we're continuing to get more and more T9s. It just may not be the first character that you're taking up to T9. Lastly, when it comes to these kind of honorable mentions or characters that I think could potentially be sleepers for future days, Stitch comes to mind. So with Milo starting to come in and the fact that he gets charges, you have other characters around the adventures, whether it's Gadget with her charges, maybe it goes into the tech world when you have Hiro coming back or Baymax on the field. Well, Stitch is really going to do well against that. He controls the field every time someone gets a charge, and if we just pump up his basic, he may be able to do enough damage to take care of these characters before they really get a chance to get started. So with Stitch, he's one of those that I would keep an eye on. If you really like using Stitch, it's probably worth the investment, but it's definitely worth a shot at a T9 Stitch to see if you can control that meta before it gets out of hand. So with that, guys, those are some of the Delta skills that I would recommend looking at, as well as finding the ones that you want to invest in. Now, this is very difficult because everybody's T9s or everybody's roster is going to look a little different. And that's why I kind of went through a couple different areas, whether it's the basics or it's the specials or it's the leadership. But I wanted to call out a few of those that, one, I know myself have done, as well as many people in Kamundra. I want to make sure when it comes to a game like this and resources are so scarce and you're really not sure where to put it, I can at least give you a couple different avenues that are going to be safe. And that's really the biggest thing with this game, is to make sure that you're not investing in a character or something that's not really going to help you progress your game. So the biggest question is for you to decide, are you focused on raids? Are you focused on PvP? And where you want to invest that gear and those deltas. So what do you guys think? Do you think that these are some of the best ones? Or are there other ones that you think should have made the list? Leave a comment below and tell me which skills that maybe I missed that I need to be looking at for my deltas. And until next time, guys, you guys take it easy.